We're very excited to have Elyse Shaw with us today to talk about gender and COVID-19. Elyse, I understand that you're the study director at the Institute for Women's Policy Research. I've known the organization a long time, and it's a great think tank on gender issues. So can you please talk to us a little bit about the research on economic security that IWPR is doing?
Yeah, first, thank you so much for inviting me to speak about this important topic and really working with me and my schedule. I really appreciate the flexibility that you all have shown. At IWPR, we believe that economic security is central to the health and well-being of all individuals, families, communities. It's kind of a linchpin of how you get people to live healthy, well, productive lives. So really moving forward, what we're looking in this time, IWPR pushes an agenda that policies, whether they be health policies, economic policies, or any other policies, needs to be based around equity and inclusion, and really needs to center the experiences and lives of those who are impacted most by the issue at hand or the issues at hand. And a lot of these issues are really interconnected, as you will see. We really need to focus on the people who, have less power, have less voice, and are really less privileged, and really kind of bear the brunt of a lot of the decisions that are made by other people higher up who have power. So we really try and use our research to bring these voices and these experiences to policy discussions and really push for change. We know a lot of people right now are asking, I've been part of these conversations because the gender wage gap is a huge part of IWPR's kind of bread and butter. It's what we do. We talk about it a lot. We talk about economic equality. So people are saying, why talk about equal pay now? Aren't there more pressing issues? Yes, there are a lot of pressing issues, and I would say equal pay is still one of them because it's central to the economic security of women and families. It's really important not to kind of say, we're just going to forget about certain issues because we only can focus on one. We really need to take a holistic approach to what's going on in the world.
Right, thank you. That's very true. So we are celebrating or marking Mother's Equal Pay Day. And before we talk about moms, can you just give us a general sense of how mothers were doing prior to COVID-19?
Yeah, so when we look at a lot of the data, because of data lags, we don't oftentimes get to see immediately what's going on in people's lives. So a lot of our data is pre-COVID-19. We're working to kind of update that and fill those gaps where we can. But women's employment before COVID, women made up 50% of the workforce, which is huge. Women haven't made up 50% of the workforce until recently. It's only been the past few years that women have kind of hit that marker. And the reason we're seeing this is that there's actually been huge growth in healthcare, education, and service sectors. These are occupational sectors that women kind of disproportionately make up a large percentage of. So women tend to be concentrated in these occupations. You'll see in IWPR's research, we talk about occupational segregation. And really what that means is men tend to work in certain jobs and women tend to work in other jobs. But we've seen a lot of growth in kind of female-dominated jobs. So that's kind of just general women. When you look at mothers, there's a high share of mothers in the workforce. One thing we look at especially is mothers with small children. And we found that 67% of mothers with children who are 5 years old or younger are in the workforce. That's a huge component. So this idea that when women have small children, they kind of drop out of the workforce, that may happen for some people, but there's still a huge segment of working moms who have young children. And this is because we've seen over the years a decline in real wages and the earnings of workers over time. Couple that with the rise of the cost of living, women's income are no longer kind of nice to have. They're essential for the health and well-being of families. They become a vital part of economic security of families. People making sure that they can pay all their bills. So according to our research, 50% of families who have children who are under 18, so children living at home, have a breadwinner mother. That's approximately 15 million breadwinner mothers in the United States. So a huge number. You may be asking, what is a breadwinner mother? At IWPR, we define that as a woman who is earning at least 40% of the household total income. So it's a significant portion where if you were to take that away, household income would drop drastically. It's a big chunk of the household income.
And how does, if we look at just specifically women of color, how does that compare? What is the disparity there to mothers in general?
Yeah, so one of the things we recently put out in our analysis, it's called Half the Sky. It's available on IWPR's website. I would encourage everyone to go look it up and look at the data themselves. But we really break this down also by race and ethnicity because there are big variances by race as well as family type. So when we look at it nationally, 4 out of 5 Black mothers are breadwinners. A majority of these Black mothers are raising families of their own. And I'll get into a little more of that in a minute. Mm-hmm. When we look at it, 2 out of 3 Native American mothers are also breadwinners, and also a majority of them are single mothers. So again, that's a big chunk of them there. Among white and Asian women, a little more than 40% are single breadwinner mothers. So not as high as Black and Native American mothers, but still a good share of them. Mm-hmm. But a majority of white and Asian breadwinner mothers are married. In our document, our briefing paper, we also look at how this breaks down within each state in the United States. So I won't get into all the data and details there. Go look it up if you're interested in your state. But across all states in the United States, Black mothers are more likely to be breadwinners and contribute a lion's share to the household income. So these differences, looking at the fact that white and Asian women are more likely to be breadwinner mothers in married coupled households, actually comes back to the gender wage gap. If you look at the gender wage gap by race and ethnicity, white and Asian women are more likely to out-earn Black and Latina and Native American women. So this allows white and Asian women to contribute more to the household and the household total income. So that's why you kind of get this skew between how many are married and how many are single mothers. When in a married couple, if you're earning less, you're less likely to be able to contribute at least 40% of the household income. Right. So just to kind of bring in a little more context around this, though Black, Native, and Latina women are more likely to be the primary wage earners, they're also more likely to live in poverty. Just a little statistic, Black and Latina female-headed households make up almost 39% of female-headed households living in poverty. So it's a huge chunk of female-headed households living in poverty that are Black and Latina led. This is just, it has a lot to do with the fact, again, going back to the gender wage gap and occupational segregation. These women tend to be employed in jobs that pay lower wages, that don't have supports like paid family leave, paid sick days, health insurance, all that kind of stuff. So they have less supports, they have less income coming in, and so are more likely to live in poverty. Just to kind of bring it back to mothers a little bit, pre-pandemic research found that mothers also spend 37% more time on household and unpaid care work at the same time. And for Black and Latina women, they actually spend twice as much time on unpaid housework and care work as their male counterparts. So really it's just showing that these mothers who are working are carrying a heavy dual burden of being both a breadwinner and the primary caregiver.
Right.
And that's pre-COVID.
Right, I was going to say, that's before our world got turned upside down.
Exactly.
So the picture wasn't that rosy then, even though we have improved over time, right?
Mhm.
But
Definitely.
certainly still major disparities, and also compared to men as well.
Yeah.
So now here we are in a new world of, we're in a pandemic. And I guess now, let's talk about how women are doing now, and what your research is showing around that.
Yeah, I think the big thing that we are seeing and is becoming readily apparent to everyone is all the issues that we were talking about before um, are just being made more acute now.
Right.
So COVID-19 has had a huge impact on working women in many different areas. Kind of women are bearing the brunt, it seems like. So many women are in jobs that are considered essential. They're healthcare workers. They work in retail at grocery stores or big box stores. So think of those kind of occupations. Again, predominantly female-dominated jobs. Then there are other women who are continuing to work from home, who are part of the lucky 30% who can work from home. So they're still bringing in money. They're working possibly very long hours,
Mm-hmm.
but schools are out. Childcare centers have been closed. Summer camps in a lot of areas are canceled, or they're being reimagined. They're turning into online camps. So really, you've got this nexus of working mothers being pushed into the impossible position of choosing between taking care of their children or continuing to work in a lot of cases. And I've seen this in my own personal life where people are having conversations saying, this is not sustainable. What do I do? How do I do this? So it's really this, impossible situation. A new study that was actually just released, which I found very interesting as a working mom, is that women who are working from home only have about 1 hour of uninterrupted work time during the day. Their male counterparts have about 3 hours of uninterrupted work time while working from home. So that's just goes to show you again how we're seeing this disproportionate impact and disproportionate burden on women. And so, like I said, while 30% of the workforce can work from home, many lower wage workers, many of them whom are women and mothers, are not able to work from home. So women are on the front lines. They're working from home, carrying an impossible burden, and a ton of them have lost their jobs. So we've seen a huge burden being carried by women by the job loss. Again, think about the jobs that are experiencing job loss. You have a lot of, again, retail stores that aren't deemed essential, a lot of service occupations, hospitality and leisure occupations. Right. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of jobs that are being lost, again, female-dominated jobs. So women have accounted for 60% of more than the 700,000 jobs lost in March, and 55% of the more than 20.5 million jobs lost in April. So that's just the first beginning of the COVID period. And looking at the job loss, women are losing more jobs. So now when we look at the jobs numbers, women's share of the workforce has taken a nosedive. We are back down to being under 50% of the workforce because of the impact of COVID-19. And again, like we had just hit that, like where we had breached that number only recently, and now we're back down. So it's really, really hard. You think about childcare centers that have closed, women lose their jobs. I just saw in the news that there has been a huge nationwide layoff of teachers. Again, that's going to be women bearing the brunt of those job losses. So huge impact on women in all different facets.
Right. And if we hone in on looking at this intersectionally, we hone in on women of color. How does that look?
So again, a lot of these jobs, you look at childcare workers, you look at the service sector, you look at leisure and hospitality. while I say that these are female dominated, I'm going to take a step further and say that a disproportionate share of women of color work in these jobs. Black women, Latina women, they're being hit very hard by job losses. Or they're essential workers. Again, these are a lot of the jobs that people didn't consider essential. You know, they were considered low paying, low wage jobs that these women of color filled. And they're either working on the front lines and being exposed to, possibly exposed to COVID, or they've suffered tremendous job loss. And when we look at that with the breadwinner mothers data, they were already more likely, these mothers were already more likely to be the primary earners in their families. Additionally, they were struggling to make ends meet already. They were less likely to be in jobs that had work supports, such as, like I said, paid time off, employer provided health insurance, all those things that help us, you know, invest, you know, have more free income and assets that we can spend on things like rent and food. So COVID-19 has only exacerbated those issues. Women of color are experiencing greater rates of unemployment. Almost 15% of Black women are unemployed now, and 20% of Hispanic women are unemployed. So it's huge. So when you look at the overall unemployment numbers, Black and Hispanic women are way above other groups. And the employment rate for single mothers has tripled. So that means more than 1 million single mothers have lost their jobs since February. So primary breadwinner mothers.
Those are, you know, those statistics are really daunting. And I think we have a lot of work ahead to, you know, to try to help sort of go back to where we were, where things were moving forward in a positive direction. We thank you so much, Elyse Shaw of the Institute for Women's Policy Research, for this, for talking to us, the study, which we will share online, and all the work that you're doing. So thank you so much, Elyse.
Thank you so much for having me and having this wonderful and very important discussion.